Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. I'm Leonard Duncan, your host, with Joe Tolle and Jeremy Osborne. Hey guys, it's Sunday morning. It's a little brisk in Ohio, so you guys should be have the heater on high, and we'll get this thing rolling. We need to thank Elka Suspension for always being there for us and bringing you more and more great shows on ATV Talk. The Blunt family and Craig Christie for all they do for ATV Talk, getting us to travel around and allowing us to present news shows. These people are just enthusiasts and they're great friends, and we appreciate them so much. So if you guys want to go somewhere where it's a little warmer, Arizona would be the place to go. Antelope Slot Canyon tours, they are going to take you into the canyons and show you the canyon, something that you've never seen before. They change all the time. So if you go back yearly, you'll see something new every time. If you're an amateur photographer, they will make you a professional photographer because your friends will ooh and ah over the quality of these photos. So let's check out Antelope Slot Canyon tours when we're on our time to go on vacation. Jeremy,
Yeah.
welcome back to the show. Joe, as always, you're my co-host, I would say, and let's get right into it. You're probably the biggest and best promoter in the ATV MX series, and that's our opinion, of course. Um, what do you think differentiates you from everybody else?
Um, well, it definitely helps to have a passion for ATV racing. It's much easier to run an event that you're passionate about. Um, Obviously, from some of my background and my daughter's racing, that gives me a little bit of a leg up there. Um, that's probably most of it. I mean, I would say that helps a bunch. So,
And you still have a great love for ATV motocross?
oh yeah, yeah. I actually I got my bike back together, my quad back together. I don't know, it was probably September. I've probably been out like 4 or 5 times, 6 times. So I plan, I say this every year. I plan to ride a little more next year. We'll see. I always plan to, but real work and track get in the way sometimes. So we'll see.
Well, Joe and I really enjoyed all the information we got from you before on the Briar Cliff race with the legends,
Yeah.
and both have lots of questions about where your amount of people were that were there. I know that Joe's been thinking about it, and he has questions at all as well. My biggest deal was, what was the estimated count for spectators?
So I had it split into two segments. I kept pretty good track up until Friday evening. So I kind of knew, but even that's kind of mixed because you got some race families and spectators that just came early. So I want to say this is going back memory wise now. I thought total we were around 5,000 and 3,000 or so of that was Saturday, Sunday, mostly Saturday. Um, so we must have had, for some reason, I don't think the Friday number was 2,000. So I might be off. It might have been 3,500 and 1,500, something like that. So, I mean, pretty good for ATV race. Five, we definitely pushed the limits of what we had available for parking. I would say we were probably under 100 people left to go before we were parking on the street.
Really?
Yeah, we're pretty close. I went up at one point and saw how far we had parked kind of out of our normal limits, and I thought if it doesn't slow down, we might be in trouble.
Hmm.
So,
What would the neighbors have said, if you started parking people on the street?
oh, hey, I mean, probably there's quite a few that are very understanding, very nice, very friendly. I'm sure we would have had one or two that said, "This is unbelievable. Why are you doing this?" I usually get one or two emails on events like that, but I also get a lot of kudos, and I think it's great for what you're doing for the area and bringing people from out of state to spend money in our area and our towns. So there's a lot of plus, and then there's a little bit of minus, but you're not going to please everybody. Um, I'm just thankful that it doesn't really escalate beyond emails. So that's fine. I understand if somebody brought in some, I don't know, pick something I don't like, circus, I don't know, and they had this massive circus every year across the street from me, I probably wouldn't be very happy with it, but it is what it is. It's not like we
Yeah.
do it every day.
Joe, you unfortunately missed out getting to go and see the crowds and how big it was. But I know that you had some questions for Jeremy, and I was just going to want to let you turn loose here a little bit and ask a couple questions so that we can keep you excluded or included in the conversation.
No, no, I don't feel left out right now. I mean, let it flow. I've got some questions that are not exactly related to that event, just kind of related to the sport and of ATV motocross in general. But I wish there had been and maybe I just missed it. I just wish that there had been some more coverage of the event. And maybe that's my fault for not doing it. But yeah.
I,
So
I Lenny had like four videos. I mean, wasn't there like four parts to this thing, Lenny? I
Actually, we did a race review
Yeah,
video. We did a live show there at the track, and then we did the 4-part series on the
right.
legends.
There's a lot
Um,
lot there just in your media outlet. I mean, alone. I guess Joe, are you talking about more of like a live coverage of the racing, like
well, just
I,
more like live coverage, or not, if that can be kind of a little bit hard to pull off sometimes, but just more of a play by play. You
well,
know, it
we had well, shoot, we should have had quad radio going. I get so buried in the event, I never think to check on that. Usually there's quad radio, but the actual video live stream, we kind of got to the table too late on that to make that happen for that event. There's a company that Jeff Cernix uses at Pleasure Valley, Romesburg Media, I believe it is. He did that at PVR, and I actually got interviewed by Kevin Bailey in their studio they had to build for the live stream, and I learned a lot in a quick Sunday afternoon about how big it is, and it wasn't something that I was going to be able to wing or put together in a week or two. It would take months of planning to pull off a true live stream at a motocross event like we had. So I'm actually going to contact that company and kind of chew on it and see, okay, what does this cost and what benefit are we getting from it? Um, so it's a thought, but I think it's for down the road. Yeah, I agree. It would have been nice if we could have live streamed it. Um, but a lot of barriers to entry there, especially at the point where we figured out who could do it and how maybe we could do it. So, but yeah, maybe next time.
and I don't know if live stream is good, but of course, live stream is live for the people who are available to watch it live and happened to come across it and know where it was going to be played. Um, one thing back in my first 2-3 years in the sport, I was working with ATV scene at the time, and we were going we were going to all the races and kind of doing highlight videos. And please don't go watch any of them, because commentary my commentary was freaking horrible at the time. It was like, this guy's on cocaine. He is so strong. Yeah, I really overdid it with the commentary at the time. I was trying to be like a monster truck guy or something. I don't know. It was terrible. But, I liked doing them. And I think a lot of people saw value in the fact that, within a day of the event, like at least you could watch pro highlights, and we covered most of the moto, like from, bell to bell, like from the drop of the gate to the checkered, we cover most of it. And I guess they're doing it some. I know Rip It Up Films does it some. Logan Tremelin does some stuff for people, but Logan won't pick up a phone like a man and make a phone call. So I got nothing to say really. Logan, call me if you ever get the balls. Because I've been interested in platforming some racing on our channel, because we're creeping on 80,000 subscribers, and it's like if you're going to put it somewhere, you got to put it somewhere that has a collective audience to watch it. It's not just as simple as YouTube channel, new 100 subscribers, bam, live stream. Because like, who's going to find it? You've got to have a collective audience to put it out there too. I'm sort of just rambling, but I'd like to see the ATV motocross coverage done a little better than what it's being done, as far as, because like, here's an example. Like, I'm sure if I go to Rip It Up Films, and I'm not ripping on Rip It Up Films, Gloop's a good guy, does a great job. But it's like, there's some pre-race interviews, there's some post-race interviews, but other than that, it's like just bikes going around a track. Well, who are they? What place are they in? How are they doing? What happened in the moto? Like, I feel like the story's not being told very well during the race to keep you following what's happening. It's something I'd like to see come back, but then the problem is, how do you pay for it?
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is so basically I looked at this kind of from a nuts and bolts engineering ish, like how could I actually do it? And I arrived at, due to our lack of seriously good internet, with enough upload speed, we would have to get the Starlink commercial, which I believe, if I recall, is $2,500 in hardware and a subscription of $500 or $600 or $800 a month. So you have some serious money just in getting the internet up to par, so your upload speed is significant enough that you won't have dropouts and other issues.
And I don't know that. And again, I'm just bouncing the ball with you. It's like, I don't know how much. Like, well, I wonder what the viewership count would be over a 72-hour period if you actually tried to stream it live with a bunch of cameras,
Right.
wired or wirelessly transmitting. Like, if you go to the level where we're streaming it live, well,
Right.
what if you just put it up that night, and it's like, here's the race, boom, it's edited, it's done up, kind of like, back in the day when we used to watch Supercross a couple days after the race, we still watched it.
I don't think you could get it edited that fast. I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that guy.
You can. I mean, you can. We've done it. I did it in the past. I mean, when we were at the WPSA, there was a few times when, a couple of us would go out and film a race. We'd show up, shoot interviews, film the races, shoot post-moto interviews. We'd be getting our staging shots and all that. And then it's like, you just sit down and, it's all sequentially on the camera in order. All you have to do is just drag it, drop it in the timeline, trim it. You don't have to go find a bunch of music and edit to music, because it's a race. It's not an action video. So the turnaround on a race like that is a lot quicker than you'd think. Just because of the way it all lays out, and it's, like I said, it's already sequentially there. You film your staging shots of the venue first, set the stage. It's the thing is just, can you get enough cameras, which most nationals, I mean, I used to do it with one and I could get most of a track. And I had big, long zoom lens and did what I could. And it was okay for the time. I think 2 or 3 cameras are required, maybe 4 if you want to get close.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, you can edit it out pretty fast. It doesn't take that long because you're not going to script it. You're just going to wing it.
Gotcha. Well, I'll take your word for it. I have no idea. But yeah, I think Loop does a really good job. I think Logan does a good job. I think that media we have now for the budget it has does well. I mean, obviously, if we were able to spend a lot more money on it, I'm sure we could have better product. It's like anything else.
One of the biggest problems that we have, from my perspective, as a guy who has done this now for going on 21 years. I mean, where this is the 20th. YouTube kind of screwed us. And the way YouTube screwed us is everybody can be the man now. Everybody can be the man. If YouTube didn't exist, Logan and Gloop would probably be teamed up and working together and platformed by a publication. But as it is now, I know a handful of guys that I would like to have as editors for our channel, but why would they? Because they can just start their own YouTube channel and put their face on it, and they can be the man. They can have all the power. They can think they're going to make all the money because, there's no cost of entry. Like when you were going to work at a print publication.
I agree with that too, but that's getting a little bit off topic of where we're going with the ATV promotion. One of the things, and I would love to have Joe there doing the video like that, because we did a video in Texas with Joe, and you get him and 2 other guys or 3 other guys on those cameras. It would be an awesome race program. But Cody did a great job calling the race. If you listen to Cody, he did a great job. He knows those guys. He's still involved, so he still has the language and knows their numbers and can recognize them just by looking at them. So he does a good. If you mic'd him up,
yeah,
you wouldn't need a whole lot, right?
Yeah, next year we're actually at least tentatively we're bringing back Rodney again. Rodney and Cody probably. Rodney is probably going to be at a lot more of the ATV Nationals next year. That's not definite, but I've shot him the schedule, and he thinks he can make a lot of them. So he actually wants to do live stream at some point in conjunction with his announcing. Again, we just gotta make the kind of the behind the scenes happen. It's not as simple as going live on that scale. There's just so many more moving parts.
It's just an investment cost there too for whoever's going to do it. It's you're going to dump into the dough, and you're not going to get the return right away. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah, it's a long-term thing.
Why do you think, and this is one thing that kind of boggles my mind, is I don't even feel like the opportunity should be there for me to go do it, because I'm feeling like, why isn't Racer, well, I don't know if it's Racer, whatever, why isn't Racer TV doing it? Because
it costs a lot.
But they do it at the cross countries, so they're already tooled up for it.
I don't know that. Yeah, it's not that simple. One, they don't have the same crew going to ATV motocross races as the cross country races, and 2, my guess is that my guess is they have sponsorship tied into that at the GNCC side that helps offset that cost, and they don't have it on the ATV motocross side. That's a guess.
Does that come down to the people that are running the nationals and not providing the support? I mean, Because rolling into my next question as we shift gears through this, because you're the only guy that will talk to us. You're the only track promoter that will talk to us. None of the other guys will come on because they have little raisins. I'm not going to get too graphic on that, but also you and I have formed a relationship, and I think we understand each other. But
Yeah.
I don't believe that any of these other guys, they're getting the gate money off the motocross guys. They're not. They don't care about promoting the race to bring the spectators in. They don't do anything for it.
Yeah. That's yes. Yes, I agree with that to a point. I mean, some of it is they're accustomed to some of the other races they have where I think motocross as a whole, not just ATVs, I mean, motocross as a whole has gotten itself so far removed from attracting spectators. The whole model is now the racers. I mean, you have area qualifier or regional, you don't even think about spectators. You're almost overwhelmed enough with the racer turnout that you're almost more focused on pleasing the racers because most of the promoters are either racers or families of racers. It's such a unique animal. You know, when I try to explain it to people who do car racing, they're just like dumbfounded. It's backwards to them. But I think motocross as a whole on all sides has become so racer focused on trying to get people there. They don't even, it's like the spectators have become, we get what we get for a lot of people.
Do you also think, and you can, I'm going to throw some heavy stuff at you, and you can feel free to you can feel free to abstain from anything I'm going to talk to you about. I'm not going to say who I talked to because I'm not throwing this guy under the bus. He was just having an honest private conversation with me. So I'm not going to say who it was, but there's a former pro ATV racer. I'm not even going to say what discipline, but has opinions on all of this. And I'm kind of told that, like, most promoters, give me the flack, people, I don't care. Most of these promoters, and obviously you're not one of them, but a lot of these track promoters are basically, I've been told, are only holding nationals at this point. Like, they don't care. They don't want it. That's what I'm told. And I'm told that they're blackmailed basically to take ATV national motocross races. Like, they're literally told by the promoters, if you want your area qualifier for dirt bikes, you will take the ATV national. If you want your regional qualifier, you will take the ATV national. And I'm told that a lot of the reason for this is, now, this isn't my opinion, this is just a conversation, so no one please send me a bomb. But I'm told that, like, the crowd that is being attracted at the ATV motocross nationals at this point is so elitist, so rich. It's not welcoming to other racers to participate. It makes people feel alienated to be there because supposedly, like, you go to a cross country race, everybody's pits are open. You can walk right in, great vibes. Everybody's having a great time. Like, you feel more welcome. And if you go to, and that's part of it, I think, is just the machines and the discipline of racing. Because you go to a cross country, yeah, you're going to see lots of people on hopped up 450s, but you're going to see a guy there on a 400EX. You're going to see a guy, you might even see some oddball on a blaster or you name it. You can race it in cross country, where motocross has become just such a high dollar sport. Half the people showing up. I got a friend who races at the nationals, and he's like, dude, I'm like one of the poorest people there with my motorhome. Like, all these people are showing up with $500,000, $250,000, $750,000 buses.
I think that's blown out of proportion a little bit. With the backup, so I'm trying to think of promoters right now on top of my head. and Etchikani. Oh shoot, my brain just quit. Promoter at Etchikani, Matt Walker. He's a solid bike guy. He talked to me after his event, and he goes, "I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. Now that I know what it's like," he goes, "I'm good with this." Jeff Cernix loves hosting us. Ezra Beasley from Budds Creek. There've been some, I don't know, a little bit of waves in the tide pool with him and some of the things going on at his event, but I think he wants us. He came to the banquet. He gave away some free camping passes. So there's 3. I'm 4. There's half the schedule. I don't know. Tell me who is being forced to take an ATV national.
I don't know. Again, this was a conversation that and really we didn't name specific names. But that's again, it's all rumor and speculation. So that's why I'm asking you.
I can tell you 4 tracks that are saying no and won't have ATV nationals, and that's Unadilla, Redbud, High Point, and Loretta's. So based on what I'm thinking and hearing, I don't know how true that is.
Loretta's doesn't want an ATV national?
No.
After all the years they've had them?
Yep. Liability. Too much liability. There's a lot of stuff kind of going on there with that facility. Yeah, it doesn't help having the public roadway running through the middle, from the upper pits to the lower, the creek. There's been some things going on there, kind of behind the scenes, and we've had some behavior issues.
And that kind of led me to my next point, is that, part of this discussion was all these promoters, and I mean, you get it. All these promoters, to put on an event of this scale and this magnitude is a lot of freaking work. And if you're doing it at a dirt bike national, or like a qualifier, a Loretta's qualifier for the amateur national championships, like, yeah, you're going to deal with a bunch of drama, either group. You're going to deal with a bunch of whiny rich parents, either group.
Yeah, but
you make so much more money on a dirt bike weekend. It's worth the pain. Whereas with the quads, and what you were just talking about at Loretta's, that was something that was mentioned to me in this conversation as well. Hate to not say names, but I'm not putting anybody on blast except myself and what I've been told. And I've heard that part of the problem with the ATV Nationals is at certain tracks, and Loretta's is probably one of them, you got all these kids on pit bikes, not following the rules, doing whatever they want. Mommy and daddy are rich. They don't care.
Well, and mommy and daddy don't even have to be rich. They just have to let them loose. So yeah, the real issues at all of those tracks is at least 2 of them. I know there have been fights, and that kind of conduct is the majority of our problem. The fights in the pits, this doesn't happen a lot, but there've been 1 or 2 incidents at a couple of those tracks that have made the promoters of those tracks leery. And then, outside of our group, just the motorsports industry as a whole is having a bit of a pit vehicle crisis, to the point where our sport is borderline uninsurable. If you can't get insurance, you're not running events. So this no pit bikes, no pit vehicle type thing that's going on is warranted to a point. But you have some of the incidents that have occurred at High Point and Loretta's. Then you throw the pit vehicle thing on top of it, and some of the off-track incidents that have happened even outside of that stuff. And that's pretty much why there's like I said, there's at least 4 national tracks that only one I think we might go back. The other three, I don't think we'll go back.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to come at this from like a negative attitude perspective. Like, 20 years ago when I started this whole, got into the industry, I thought motocross was king. Um, I still think they're probably, in a 20-minute sprint, they're still I think they're the fastest guys out there.
I mean, a lot of good athletes on the GNCC side. I mean,
Oh yeah.
just because their bodies aren't conditioned for sprinting at any given time. I mean, they could train and become great motocross racers, I think. I mean, they
for sure
have the instincts, they have the capabilities. They're just not training for motocross. That's a training thing. They just need to switch it up and focus on it. But back to the GNCC thing, I honestly have never been to one. I'll be straight up honest. I've never been to one. I've heard from people. There's a lot of good vibes in the pits, and that's cool. ATV motocross, I don't know. I think I've been around it so long, I've become numb to whatever it is it's supposed to feel like, because I've been immersed in it for such a long time that I don't have the fresh green eyes. I don't have I don't know. I just pull in and I'm there. I'm at a motocross race. So
I want to ask you another question that's going to shift gears. And do you think that the people that own the series should invest more in the promotions to try to get the fans out?
I think everyone involved could help that. Everybody from series ownership to the promoters, the individual promoters. And I think it's as simple as, let's try some small things. That schedule, they make that schedule. They make a poster for every round with the track's artwork and their name on it. And all we have to do as promoters is print that sucker out, 11 by 17 or whatever, poster size. I think I get them maybe a little bigger, whatever a poster size is. And I print off 200 of them. And honestly, I hand out about half of them to people at the races that want to take them to their local areas and businesses. That's small step number one. Get the posters, hand them out, take them around town, and put them up. Does two things: tells the neighborhood about your event, and then when the racers show up and see it at a business, they realize that you care and you're trying. So, yeah, I think everyone could do a better job. Biggest room in the house is room for improvement. The series ownership has a lot going on, a lot. They're very, very, very busy. Not saying that as an excuse, but it's the reality, just the way it is. So instead of pointing fingers, I think all of us need to say, hey, what can we do to make this better? And we all got to help make it better.
Jeremy, how long have you been in like the ATV motocross scene? How many decades? How many years?
I ran my first ATV, motocross. My first ATV motocross, I think, was in '97 at High Point. TT 96 or 97, about the same. Well, as a kid, I ran 2 or 3 Pine Lakes back in like 87, 88 on little LT80s. But big quads and motocross is more like about a decade later. So not way back, but not too new either. So
well, 97 was an interesting time because we were still in a bit of a lull. We
right.
hadn't had the 250R since '89. That the 250 LT went away in '92. So we were racing old bikes for 10 years at that point, and people were starting to do hybrids. But do you think, has the spectator numbers dropped since the late '90s to today? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, I think the numbers are up across the board since the late 90s. I can remember Jerry from Daniel Boone. He was
I
excited.
love that guy.
He was excited to get 400 entries, and what do we have, 670 something in July? I mean, the rest of the numbers are they're down a little bit because of economy, but uh,
As far as like local spectators, though, do you think that the people showing up to watch are decreasing, increasing through the
I
decades?
I don't think it's increasing or decreasing. I think it's pretty much about the same. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, outside of our event in July, every race seems to be about the same. I mean, you see a little more at High Point and a little more at my track because Ohio and Western PA are kind of closer to the what I would call the nucleus of
Right.
TV racing, and it's kind of like a hotbed area. You see a lot more Ironman too. Those tracks that have a pretty good base for spectators, you see a little more. But I mean, overall, to be quite honest, from then till now, there are fluctuations, like little like events where that are one off. They have pretty good attendance, but on average, I don't know that it's changed a whole lot. Seems about the same. I don't know. I guess back then I never really paid attention to that stuff. I was just worried about getting my moto.
I was just curious. I was curious, and obviously maybe a little biased because I came into the sport in '96. I got my first bike. I started really watching and paying attention to it around 1990, though, when I was still a two-wheel guy
Yeah,
and thinking four-wheelers would be better. But I just remember the old magazines and dirt wheels, and they'd show like the pros bikes articles, and you'd have like a Legger Banshee, Eichner's Legger Banshee, and then you'd
yeah,
have a few 250Rs, and then you'd have like a Tom Carlson 254 stroke pro bike, and you'd even have air cooled 200 class adults racing blasters. And I
yeah.
just remember as a young guy, before I even got my first quad, thinking, man, there's a lot of cool, different, neat machines
Mm-hmm.
in ATV motocross that people are racing. And it was almost like dirt bikes at the time, which I was into that. It was like dirt bikes were like, okay, you got a whole bunch of colors of
Yeah,
a very similar machine, where these quad guys had a pretty diverse kind of thing going on. And now it's sort of flipped where
yeah.
everybody there's only one kind of size ATV that's going to get raced at a national. It's going to be a 450. 95, 98% is going to be a blue one. Thank you, Yamaha, for building sport quads. Still, we love you. Um, but it's just like, to me as a spectator, I've raced motocross. But I'm still more of a fan of it than a participant. And to me, it's like there's so little diversity in what's being raced. It's almost like it's taken some of the fun out of it from the spectator perspective. Is there anything you think that can be done to add any sort of diversity in classes other than just more classes, same bike?
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, the diversity you're talking about also is a little bit harder to build, I think. And back in the day, you had to custom make everything, like yourself almost. The air boxes and the exhausts and damn kicker extenders and all this stuff was such a pain
You're
to.
talking for hybrids, basically,
Yeah,
right?
and I think a lot of the diversity you're talking about I mean, basically came from hybrids to a point. I know we had other OEMs at that, for that brief time. But when I think of diversity, I think of all the one-off machines that were made, like the Eichner Protrax Banshee. So yeah, I guess my examples are probably more hybrid related, but I don't know. I think building them now, other than just getting the parts, is a little easier. Everything's a little more cookie cutter. Um,
But
all
the
of
but, but the cost is just
well,
it's just obnoxious. It's obnoxious. I know a pro am kid locally who I work with their family, and his dad's calling me up and he's like, "How much do you think I have in my son's motor?" And I'm thinking like, well, when I built my Warrior, I spent like 1,500 with power roll,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was a 2-valve head. So I better guess high here so that, I get close to the target. I don't know. How much do you have in your bike engine? Like 5 grand, 6 grand? He says 10.5
Yeah.
in the motor alone. So I think, and I wonder if that's one problem is like, if you show up at a national and you want to race the C class, you're probably going to race some guys with a $10,500 motor. Now, do you need it to beat him? Maybe not. But do you feel like you do? Yep.
So Kenzie's CRF motors are stock. I don't, we got some tuning and a high, slightly higher comp piston, which is nothing. But we don't, there's other options out there. The hybrid engines, you don't really have to spend a lot of money on them. The CRF engines,
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, the newer CRFs. I ride her package, and dude, it is insane to me. It's a lot. I actually I remember the first time I had a CRF motor ahead of when she had 250s. So she had a CRF 250 engine like her last couple of years of schoolgirl. And so I put a 450 in my TRX the year ahead just to get an idea of what she was getting into. I took it to Texas, and this was with the stock ECU, and it has the 3 maps or whatever. I put it on the slow map. I was like, holy cow, dude. Like, it was almost obnoxious for the first ride of the year. So yeah, a lot of people spending a lot of money on Yamahas and dual injectors and that kind of thing. And I think that's, you could do that, but you could also run a CRF engine and be pretty competitive.
Well, give me one more. Give me one more, and then I'll shut up because I feel like I'm taking over Lenny's job. But
Well,
I like this.
I'm gonna shift gears on you guys here in a second.
Well, give me one more. Do you think? I know there's a lot of fear in racing of if we allow hybrids, that Yamaha will quit making their bike. I've heard that. And in my conversation with that former pro guy, who I'm not saying who he is or what discipline he raced, he's like, Joe, it's going to be a $40,000 machine. It's going to be a $40,000 machine. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, if you call Mike Walsh and you're like, Mike, I want your frame, I want your A-arms, I want your swing arm, I want your stem, I want your linkage. It's like, yeah, if you want to build $100,000 450, yeah, I'm sure you can come up with the parts to do it. But, you can also go buy a used $3,500 TRX 450R that isn't cracked up, hopefully has a blown up motor, so the guy will sell it cheap, revalve their suspension to fit your weight, get the conversion package, drop a CRF 450 engine in it. You ain't near $40,000 for that bike. You could probably build that bike for 10.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretty decent Yamahas and Hondas out there for 8 to 10 that you could buy and refurbish and still be under 20.
Do you think it's time? Because obviously, like my friend I was talking to about his son who races, he started with a $10,500 quad, and he put 10,500 in the motor. So he's already at $21,000, and that's before suspension, A-arms, axle, wheels, tires, everything else that goes into it. Do you think it's time to just say, let's just set a displacement limit and stop like the production rule? Why do we have a production rule for one bike?
I don't know. And honestly, the other machines that race with those production machines I don't think that it's heavily one side or the other. I mean, the Yamahas win just as much as the hybrid TRXs win. I mean, I don't see either one as dominant. Um, they're pretty even. It's really about the rider who's riding it, in my opinion. Uh, I I don't know. It's not really a CC thing. I Here's the interesting thing, and I chew on this a lot. It's like we had classes that were price restrictive. We had production stock classes. They were the least attended classes. So it's almost like everybody says, man, this is so expensive. Man, our solution is okay, have a class where we don't spend as much. Are we going to do it? No, we're not. We're going to continue to spend too much money because we want all the gadgets. Nobody wants to ride stock.
And I think, and this is my opinion, and then I promise Lenny I'll shut up. But
well, go ahead, Joe. But I'm going to change the direction of the conversation.
In 2010, we did a 450 motocross shootout. We had all the bikes that were marketed as motocross bikes: the Yamaha, the Suzuki, the KTM, the Can-Am, the Polaris. We had all 5 bikes that were marketed as motocross bikes. We left the Honda and the Kawasaki out of the shootout, which pissed off a lot of Honda guys. I don't really care, who were like, you just wouldn't put the Honda in there because you knew it would have won. And I'm like, no, you fool. No, we didn't. We didn't put the Honda in the shootout because if we would have put all we did to those bikes was pipe them, jet them, program them, Nerf bars, 18-inch tires, if they didn't come with 18-inch tires. So that was the limit, and kill switches. No suspension work, no internal motor work. I mean, that was it. And I had to tell these Honda guys, like, no, your little Honda you love so much would have got raped by probably 3 of these bikes on a motocross track in stock condition. But looking at it at the time, because obviously I was a big motocross fan, I'm like, we need a pro stock class, and we need it now. This was like 2000. It was 2010, just as stuff was starting to really hit. And I remember talking to George Cortez. No disrespect to George, love him. He's done a lot for the sport. But I'm telling George, like, dude, they need a pro stock class. They need it now. You got 5 brands that can compete. The pro stock class should end up being more valuable than the pro class because
I agree. It's the huge draw, and it's representing the factories better than your modified versions, but it didn't happen the way we all thought it should have.
And with racing being so monkey see, monkey do, like, I've been around racing, and like, whatever somebody else has got, everybody else has to have it. Everybody idolizes the pros, and they all think they need pro bikes. And it's like, if you could get the pros racing stock bikes and you actually had competing brands, then those other guys coming up who don't have the big budget, I feel like the stock class, if it had been done at the appropriate time, could have done much better. What do you think?
I think they could have done. Actually, that idea came from Chad and Thomas, the stock pro class, and the whole thing actually was their idea. I think, having looked at it now after it's been gone for a few years, I think what we could have done, and in hindsight's 2020, but I think to take a page out of some of like the Loretta Lynn bike stuff, we could have chosen to call it limited, like 450 limited. See, right off the bat, stock just sounds bad. But limited, I don't know why. Limited's better. You could have limited some of the things you could do to the machine. I think it could have been marketed a little better. I mean, as long as, in my opinion, if you're allowed to touch everything but the inside of the engine, that's probably limited enough or close.
I agree with that. I like that idea.
I like it too, because the real big cost, and once you build that race bike, is once you build your $10,500 Yamaha and you build that thing to the brink, you're going to rebuild it twice in a season.
That's just it. It's the rebuild that gets a lot of guys, because and Lenny knows better than I. You're probably building these things really kind of more on the edge, and the reliability is not quite as good, and so your rebuilds are more frequent.
Right.
Yeah.
You got guys out there that are running an engine a race.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's just astronomical. But I want to, it is on Tatum. I want to shift gears though. I want to talk a little bit more instead of so much about the spec bikes or the limited classes.
Yep.
Square One asked about a spec class, but you could call it a spec class, a limited class.
Yeah.
Either way, I think that it's almost mandatory to do it to bring the cost down.
Mm-hmm.
What about format change?
Yeah.
You have a 3-day event, costs more money.
Yeah.
You're talking about like let's just go GNCC. You roll in on Saturday, you race, you roll out. You've limited a huge amount of the cost. You're losing less work time. Even if you have to drive 12 hours to get there, you're still able to maybe not lose. You're only losing 1 day of work instead of 2 or 3.
Right.
Depending on who you are.
Can't do it. You can't do it with 60 classes.
Yeah, and everyone wants their own gate drop, and I kind of get it, but that's the advantage GNCC has is they can run, I don't know, a few hundred people in a couple hours.
I understand that, but what I'm asking you is, is there a way to change the format to make it more affordable? Do you have to have a practice day on Friday?
No, but I don't think you realistically, with the mindset we have, I don't think you're going to get out of that. Yeah, I mean, like some of the tracks we go to now, I mean, Kinsey wouldn't need Friday practice, but we do it. A format change would be good. I just don't know. I think to be effective, you would have to, like you're thinking, you'd have to drop a day at least. To take the like race mechanic enthusiast hat off and put on the promoter racetrack owner hat, Friday's a pretty good amount of money coming in. I don't know that I would be a fan of saying no practice. That's a pretty good chunk of income that you see on Friday.
I understand that for your point of view, but when we look at the sport point of view, the enthusiasts, we're dropping people because they can't afford it.
Right. And you have other things. What did we start the full time in 2018? So we've gone through six or seven seasons, however that works. And the thing I see, it's not really the racetrack part as much as it is the travel. The travel will eat you alive. I mean, and we're relatively close to a lot of them. The travel and the time off, if you have a regular job, is what I think deters people the most. Because, a few years ago, you still saw people with old stuff racing. They didn't care. But some of them I've seen quit. And I think it's more or less the other expenses that are getting people, or they don't have the time off from work to go. I mean, 2022, my place of employment at that time, I had 4 weeks vacation. I think I would burn almost 3 of them taking her to races. And then I had a week to get my races put on at my track. So the time off is kind of a barrier to entry, and the cost of travel, I think, is a big one. That's my opinion. But
why do you think because to me, it doesn't, this is backwards. Just thinking about it economically for the participant, you know, you're a parent, your kid's got this dream he wants to go racing. There's a whole lot more money to go race dirt bikes than there is to go race four-wheeler. Especially it always was, and more so now than ever. Other than maybe again the mid '90s. If you're a dirt bike parent, I know it's still very expensive, but like you said, you got these limited classes. You can do less to the bike. You don't have to spend quite as much money. I know it's still an expensive sport. I'm not taking anything away, but if your kid's fast and he trains and he can get it done, even if you're not rich, I don't think James Stewart's parents were rich when he was coming up. Maybe they were. But I think it's like, if you can qualify at an area qualifier, you can make it to the national championship. If you got to go through a regional to get there, you can make it to the national championship. I mean, like 3 races and you can be at Loretta's. Am I wrong? For dirt bikes, and now for ATVs, for amateurs, we've got this, whatever it is, 10, 12 race series where all the amateurs are traveling around like pro dirt bike guys running a pro dirt bike series, but we're making amateur guys do it on ATVs who have no chance or aspiration of making $1 million a year to race, because it just doesn't exist. Why is the sport that has far less opportunity, where the bikes cost 40%, 50% more to build, unless you're getting work suspension from Showa? Why are we in a much less opportunity sport running a series in such a way that costs way more time and money than what the dirt bikes are doing, when they have way more opportunity to actually make money at some point? Do you think that this whole
that you're getting a skewed view of the bikes? Those guys that are chasing Loretta's, they're running all the regions they can.
Okay.
They're not doing there's very few. There's some of the guys that are, call it mid pack and back at Loretta's ish, like 20th to 40th.
Yeah.
They 3. The guys running up front, they're not running 3. They're running every region they can, because what I've learned running regionals, is they go to a lot of them to get practice to race against the guys they're going to see at Loretta's.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Different animal. You're talking apples and not apples and oranges, but it's more like apples and apples in a way. I don't think it's reality that most of the guys are running just 3. And I would even go as far as to bet they're probably running 4 areas and 4 regionals, and then going to Loretta's and spending astronomical amounts of money to race at Loretta's. I'd almost bet it would be interesting to compare, like, a family that's been to Loretta's, like, say 3 times on bikes, what they've spent. I bet I kind of wonder if their expenditures, even though they're lower, possibly lower on the bike building side, what they've spent in training camps and other things. I think you'd be surprised how much they've spent. I mean, a lot of these kids that have aspirations to race at a higher level, they're going down to training camps 2-3 months at a time and getting homeschooled. And I don't know that the bikes are that much cheaper. I think maybe the initial bikes in the very beginning, when they're just buying them off the showroom floor, having the suspension set for their weight and adding a pipe or something. I don't know.
I just don't see. I mean, I'm a former dirt bike guy, and I assume you have been at some point. Yeah. I don't see how you can, especially with limited classes and things like that. I mean, a dirt bike is far more capable off the showroom floor.
Oh yeah.
You got half the guys on Gypsy Tales, podcasts saying 450s are too fast.
Yeah.
So you don't need to spend money on the motor.
That's actually how we picked our engines in the beginning, where I listened to the bike guys say, man, this thing's so fast, I don't even want to ride it. And I'm like, that's the engine we want right there. Put it in a quad.
But, I mean, I think that we've hashed out a lot of great points. No, we didn't come up to any solutions because we're not the people that get to make those calls. Um, but Jeremy, do you get to go to the meetings and talk to these people and get the inside track to possibly changing some of this stuff?
I mean, we do have meetings. We actually haven't had like an ATV promoters meeting this year yet. And I would like to kind of start putting that together because we got a lot of new faces. We have the Decker family that's going to run a one-off Triple Crown event at their training facility. Matt Walker had his first ATV national this past season. Ezra's still pretty new to it. Of course, we got seasoned veterans like Jeff Cernix and Bob at Sunset Ridge. I think it would be good to get that group together and trade notes and knowledge. And there's a lot of experience and talk about those things. Yeah, pie in the sky. If we could somehow come up with a new format that wouldn't shake up the current group that's coming, but yet attract more of another group back, that would be great. I don't know how you do that. I mean, I think it's two moto formats so entrenched, and the classes. I mean, I've actually skinnied up. I've helped skinny up that class a little bit. We combined there was 85 classes. I forget what it was now. We did a little bit of a combination there and combined some stuff. Other than the extra 450 classes, I think there's like a production B and C, and an open B and open C, and then a 450 A, B, C. Other than maybe dropping one of those sets, I don't really see a way to lighten the class load.
Why can't we, for these adult 450 riders, why can't we just have pro, like, whatever the XC1 class, or why can't we have pro-am, ABC, plus 40, plus 50, and that's it. And that's it.
That's interesting.
I mean, as a spectator, because like I'm not a racer, and I get it. I'm just coming at it from that other perspective because there's so many classes, you can't keep track of it. There's so many motos, there's so many gate drops, and it goes back to the time thing. It's a freaking national. It should mean something just to make it to the main. And it's like, I look at it like, and it's like, and this is why I'm starting to become more of a GNCC guy and a little bit less of a motocross enthusiast, because it's just like, obviously GNCC, you don't have to qualify, but it's like qualifying in a national should mean something. Like, when I used to go to a tournament to fight in the main event in your division, to get to that spot meant something, win or lose. And now it's just like, well, my son's got to have an opportunity to get a trophy too. No, your son needs to work his fat ass off and learn how to ride and qualify. And then when he does that, he can be proud of that. And then maybe he can win one day.
Yeah, but we don't live in that society right now because everybody wants a handout.
Well,
would it kill the number? Would it kill the number of entries though?
Let Jeremy answer your question, Joe.
Sorry.
I don't think that we have. I think our classes are pretty fair. I mean, there's definitely a difference between a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old. I don't know that it. I don't know. I don't know that we're losing. The other thing that pops in my head when you said that is, have you ever seen how many classes GNCC has?
A lot.
I've not been a very good student of that series, but I kind of follow the girls a little bit, and I start, obviously the WXC, and then I start popping down and looking. They have a lot of classes.
They do.
So why is that successful?
1-day format.
Okay. So it's really just the format. So we really shouldn't be looking at classes as much as we should the time.
So let me ask you this. You said something about everybody wants their own gate drop.
Yeah. For their class.
Why not? You're the guy. You make the rules. They don't. Run them. The smaller classes, run 3 or 4 of them at one time. Shorten the day.
Yeah.
Is that hard for scoring though?
No, not well. Yes and no.
With Transformers, it wouldn't be, would it be?
Well, you still back up scoring, and you'd be surprised how many times you have transponder glitches, and you got to look at the backup scoring. Yeah, yes and no. It's a problem to run multiple classes together, but to Joe's point, if we're shooting for something that means something to be there, then why would your class be tangled with another class for a national championship?
I get it. I mean, it's just we're just trying to throw out options of something to shorten the days, and the promoter gets screwed if you take the practice day away, but the consumer gets screwed because you add a day.
The other thing I've kind of thought up and have chewed on is trying to split the program. Of course, race parents that actually ride wouldn't benefit at all, but if you did like youth one day and amateurs another, you might help it that way, maybe. I don't know that it would change a whole lot because really it's the time getting there. And when you got to leave on a Wednesday or a Thursday, that really gets you. So being done a day early might help you not take off a Monday, maybe. But I don't know.
I get it. I get it. I don't think that we're going to come up with the solution on here. Joe, you had a secondary question that I interrupted you on. I'm sorry about that. Go right. If you remember what that was, go ahead and fire it off.
I don't, but I think what Jeremy just said was kind of interesting when he's talking about doing youth one day and amateur another, because it seems like all these tracks are getting ripped so deep now. You don't see hard pack tracks like Carlsbad as much anymore. And I was corrected on that. Like some of these tracks do get hard packed, so maybe I'm full of shit. But obviously, like the way you would prep a track for a DRR 90 would probably be different than the way you'd want to prep a track for a 450. So I think that's one way where it's like one advantage. I don't know if that helps, the timing or the event flow better, but it's like if you're running all the small bikes one day, getting through the youth program, it's like you can let that. I would think you could prep the track a little different, maybe make the racing better, but I don't know. I don't know how you would expedite the event and make it quicker and make people be there less time when any given age group on a 450 has 3 classes, 2 to 3 classes they can sign up for. It's like if I'm 25, I should be eligible for one class, A, B, C, Pro Am, or Pro. I think that's the only way you do it is don't have all these redundant classes. Plus 25. What the heck does that mean? When you're 25, you're a stud. You don't need a plus 25 class. Vet at 25, you're in your prime.
And 25 has a hard time because it's kind of become the place for former pros to kind of come back and roost a little bit, and it's hard to get guys to run that class a little bit because of that. It doesn't have a great turnout.
Pro-Am. Go race Pro-Am.
Yeah, I think those guys also feel like they shouldn't not that they're going to mess up Pro-Am, but they kind of want to let the young guys have their moment in Pro-Am, I think. I could be wrong about that. So, but like Brett Music, he runs Pro Sport. He'll run 25 plus in Pro Sport, and he's super competitive in Pro Sport. I don't know. It's interesting that for so long people have been trying to figure out how to quote unquote fix it. I kind of feel like the solution is just ride. People need to ride. They need to go ride. And if they want to race, go race. If you don't want to race, that's fine. But I think think people just need to go ride and have fun.
Right. I
And
agree.
do you think because I think one problem that we're facing on a national epidemic is there are so many tracks that won't let quads come out and practice. And,
Yeah.
I work with Scott Plessinger, Aaron Plessinger's dad. He's my local track owner, and he's very generous with us. Thank you very much, Scott, for all you do for us with our testing program. And, he will let us go out on non-dirt bike peak times and take our quad if we're shooting it out on the track. But obviously we're very mindful of the fact that it's a dirt bike track. We don't bang into their ruts. We'll take the outside line because it's smoother. We won't just flatten all the corners out.
Right.
Because we want to be welcome. But I think nationally we have an epidemic of there's just not as many people riding motocross anymore because there's nowhere to go practice motocross.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing, as far as if we did more of a qualifier type of program than a national series type of program, do you think we could kind of push more tracks on a national level to re-evaluate doing more quad stuff? Because, one thing Scott does, and I'm not picking on Scott, again, thank you, Scott. He's like, Joe, I'll have quad practice on a Wednesday night at 5:00 and nobody shows up. It's like, yeah, because it's dark at 9. They get off work at 5. They got to go home, load the bike. It takes them an hour to get to your track. It's 6:30. They're going to get to ride for a couple hours, and that's it. It's
Right.
It's like you can't give us these weird times when there's so few of us, and then give us a really weird time slot and expect us to show up at force. Do you think we could get more tracks into it if we did it more like a qualifier deal where ATVs kind of put them back into more tracks nationally?
I think you're just going to spread everybody out. I think you're going to take a 400, 500, 600 rider entry event and make it 200.
Okay.
I've heard this qualifier idea before, and I don't know that it works. At the root, it is a problem for the future. The fact that there's so many tracks now that don't let quads ride at all. It's definitely a whole nother barrier to entry. It's a thing. It's a problem. But I don't know that qualifier type schedule is going to work. I think it's just going to spread. So if you look at the country and you look at Ohio, Michigan, PA, Indiana, those are in Kentucky,
The hotbed.
those are the hotbeds. So, I mean, if you had qualifiers in kind of those areas, they would probably be well attended. I just don't think the qualifier regional system works because we don't have enough hotbed areas.
That makes sense.
I mean, we don't even have much of a South presence anymore. A little bit, but last time we went to Aonia Pass, there were like 2 or 3 entries from Georgia, 4 entries. I don't even know. So I don't know that the qualifier thing works or could work. We did take a step, I think, in the right direction this year with the schedule. There's only 8 amateur rounds, and there's 2 drops.
Oh, wow.
So
it's really, you only have to do 6 nationals to compete.
Correct.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yeah, it's not nearly as big as it used to be. Even last year it was 9, and the youth could drop 3, and the amateurs dropped 2. I think 8's good. I think that'll help a little bit. But really, it comes down to, right now the economy is not the greatest. It's not bad, but people are starting to be a little more choosy about where they go, what they do. Riding is I think a lot of families on the bike and quad side are saving for bigger events and doing less of the day to day. It's what I've seen. So like our area qualifier last year was pretty big, but like our local state championship race was kind of okay. So, so people are being choosy. We just need a little better economy, a little more confidence, and probably some extra money. And I think you'll see some numbers kind of come back to the series a little bit.
I'm hoping that that's true. In the chat, there's a lot of good comments about a lot of different things. They're agreeing and disagreeing and stuff like that. I don't think the regional qualifiers will work because of some of the things you guys said. You have a hot spot in Washington, Oregon area where you have a series up there that runs pretty strong in MX, but you don't have anything in Utah. You don't have anything in Idaho. As you come across, there's nothing in Nevada. You have some desert racing stuff, but you're not having, organized motocross tracks, which is hurting us across the nation. You're not pulling everybody together because it's not a national sport. It's a regional sport.
And I think one thing, and obviously, we're talking to Jeremy Osborne, which is the promoter who a lot of ATV guys I talk to are like, yeah, he's the best. He's the best right now. Like, he cares more. He does a better job.
His head's swelling. His head's swelling.
So, they obviously, the Nationals can't fix the whole problem by themselves. I'm personally a big advocate, and I'm just throwing it out there for anyone who's listening that wishes there was more racing in their area. Do what Tim Stefanko did, the guy from, who started the Ohio Trike Crew. Nobody was racing three-wheelers, and, he started ATV or three-wheeler motocross racing at Trike Fest. He got a whole group of guys that were going, and nobody wanted a three-wheeler anywhere. And this guy got people together, and he went to promoters and said, hey, look, if I can fill a gate, or if I can get, 10, 15 guys to come sign up, will you give us a class? So, part of this problem can be fixed by us as enthusiasts. Like, if you want to race motocross locally on your four-wheeler, you can probably make it happen with a little work. Get on social media, start a Facebook page for ATV racing in your area. It wouldn't cost much to compete locally now because you got no one to race against. You got a stock 400EX with a kill switch. You got a race bike, especially if there's no depth of talent and you don't need a high dollar machine. If it's not happening in your area to get it going, you don't need to spend a bunch of money. So start a Facebook group and then go politic track owners.
I think that's 100% correct. I mean, if you went to these tracks that are saying no ATVs and said, hey, run one class, I'll bring you 10 guys, probably going to take interest in it. But we gotta show up. I mean, we get these opportunities for open rides or track days for quads. We got to make a little bit of an effort to try to support that, because that's the only way we're going to get back to the point where it's more commonly accepted to have ATVs at open rides.
I agree.
They got to see the numbers.
Right? You have to participate.
Right.
Gentlemen, we went over our time just a little bit. Jeremy, as always, hey, thank you for doing what you do for the support. We really appreciate it. Please keep it up. I don't know what you're going to pull out, what kind of rabbit you're going to pull out of the hat for the finals next year. I can't wait to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
Please keep us posted, because Joe and I are always wanting to know so that we can help you.
I got one more for Jeremy. I got one more. I gotta get this in.
All right.
I think and I'm tempted to call my contact at Honda tomorrow and order the bike, because I think one of the coolest stories in ATV racing right now, as a real fan of this whole thing, is we're going back to 1969 again. Ashtabula's biggest classes this year, I heard, were grown ass men on little stock TRX 90s. And I look at that and I'm like, it's 1969 all over again, where everybody's racing stock ATC 90s. And, it was like, we didn't care that they were simple back then. People still race them. And it's like now you got a whole bunch of grown men racing stock TRX 90s. And I know that you guys do some 90 racing at your track as kind of a sideshow to the national. Yep. What are your thoughts on that class? Because I think it's just cool as shit that these guys are like $3,500 bikes, no mods, ring it out, let's go bang.
I think it's awesome. I think it's, I can't remember if we did that and we started it when we started back in 21 or 22, but it's become a really fun thing to do Saturday night. Next year, I think we're going to get Nick Janusa more involved with the track design, because we usually just wing it and I think it's all about fun. And that's what is really missing. That's a key ingredient that's missing right now. People are having less fun and they're more worried about their result. So the TRX 90 thing is kind of a breath of fresh air as far as the one-off races that are being had. I think it's awesome because that is undeniably like the most fun people are having right now is racing little TRX 90s.
You got less money in your quad than the guy racing in the big bike class has in his motor.
And honestly, the best part about it is nobody cares where they finish. They're on the track with 20 or 30 other guys going, I don't know how fast they go, 5 mile an hour, 10 mile an hour, 20, whatever the hell it is. And they're having a blast. And it's like, nobody cares really where they finish. They do, but they don't. Nobody cares. It's just fun. It's like back to the
old days when you go out there and race with your buddies and ride with your buddies, and you're rubbing on each other, you're pushing each other out, you're just having a great time riding.
Yep.
And the Turkey Derby that Janusa puts on,
exactly.
Too cool.
Yeah, it looked so amazing. I would almost rather at some point go to something like that and be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because it's grassroots.
Cheap thrills, baby.
I think we got
to
get back to the fun. I mean, we're always worried about all the numbers. Oh, how are we going to fix it? What classes? This, that, blah, 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 blah. Just go ride. Just go ride and have fun.
So if somebody lived in Ohio or the surrounding area and they catch wind of your TRX 90 pit quad races on a Saturday night, and they're not racing in the big bike classes, is that event open to just anybody who wants to come up and show up and race that Saturday night race on their 90? Can just anybody do that?
Yes, sir.
Oh man.
The one thing we can't get around is we still got to come through the gate. So you might as well make a day of it. Come watch the pro class on Saturday, pay your gate admission, hang out. I think we charge $20 for the TRX 90 race. It's usually like 7 o'clock ish. I think next year we're probably going to get some light plants. But yeah, I mean, it's not just for racers. One of my favorite classes is the mechanic class or the Moto Mama class, the moms. I mean, it's not really just for racers. It's for everybody.
Right.
And that's just it. It's fun. And it's
the Moto Mama class. You got a lot of plastic flying through the air and it's not just coming off the four-wheelers.
They might actually be the most serious class, to be quite honest. I'm pretty sure they want to win.
Nice.
Sounds like it. Hey, gentlemen, I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out on your Sunday. Jeremy, I know you're a busy guy. You're probably winding down for the year on the race course because of the weather. Yeah, we've always appreciate everything that you bring the industry. As always, everybody, ATV Talks brings you 3 shows a week. We have a morning show on Sundays, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on YouTube. On Tuesdays, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, you'll get our audio show. That's on all your audio platforms. And on Wednesdays, we do a live Instagram show called Bench Prep Conversations. So check them all out. We would love you to subscribe, follow, share as often as you possibly can. Remember, ATV on demand, UTV on demand, get your subscriptions in or your follows, whatever you need to do. If you're in Ohio or in the surrounding areas, Jeremy Osborne, Briarcliff is going to be hosting the finals for ATV motocross. So please go to that race, enjoy it, and get your subscriptions to Dirt Wheels as well. We thank you all so much. Jeremy, anything in closing?
Nope. Just want to thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. Try to answer everything as best I can and try to help keep promoting the sport of ATV racing. So,
Joe, how about you in closing?
I just want to congratulate Jeremy on being the final round of the series. I think that's a big deal. I mean, Loretta Lynn's was always the final round for a lot of this history, and that made it a big deal. And whatever reason, the final round now belongs with a real ATV enthusiast, and yeah, I think that ends it on a high note.
It's an honor. It's got to be an honor, Jeremy.
it is, and what it also is pretty cool that this next year we're going to be hosting a round of the Triple Crown series for ATV MX Pro class. So that'll be new. It'll be brand new. So we'll be the anchor round, the finals for the whole series, and for the Triple Crown, that's a series within the series for the pro class. So that's exciting. First year for that. I'm sure we'll have a few more little tidbits.
Are there different tracks participating in that Triple Crown, or is it a Triple Crown all at your track?
No, it's a Triple Crown. So there's 3 rounds. First Triple Crown race is at Decker Training Facility, the Saturday following Daytona. The second round is at Sunset Ridge, which I believe is on Memorial Day weekend this year. And then the last Triple Crown is at my track, obviously August 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever that weekend is. So you got this Triple Crown, and it's Triple Crown Supercross format. So there'll be 3 motos at those events for pros, 12-minute plus 1 lap. But that will be a series within the pro series.
And those are good. They're going to be pro only weekends, no amateurs racing.
No. It's a regular. Well, at Deckers, it'll be pros with some support classes, but those will not be like a national series points support class or classes. Yep. Sunset and Briarcliff will be regular ATV nationals, full amateur program. We'll just have the Triple Crown format for the pros on Saturday.
Thanks. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, very, very, very proud of that, and the stuff we're gonna have for our race next year.
All right, guys. We'll catch up with you guys later. Jeremy, plan to get an invitation to come back, because when the season starts, we're going to need to get some insights from you.
Copy that.
Thank you again, Joe. You guys have a great day.
Happy to be here. Great talking to you.